What's up, strongest men, women, and children from blocks all around the world? I am my block's strongest man, and today it seems like Brian Shaw released the results of the inaugural Shaw Classic on Instagram, so I feel comfortable after waiting for clearance to kind of go ahead and go through all of the results with you today with a full analysis of every event. Ciao, homie! Welcome to My Block's Strongest Man, where we bring attention to the world of strongman and show you how you can mimic those activities using everyday objects all around your own property. If you haven't done so yet, consider subscribing and remember to hit that bell button for all notifications so you'll know whenever I provide all the valuable content every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday. So without further ado, on to today's topic. So, I won't bury the lead. I'll give you the results first and then the analysis. So, who won? Brian Shaw won his own inaugural Shaw Classic against what I had predicted. I thought he would podium, but I think he exceeded expectations of a lot of people, and not because it was his home gym or gyms or anything like that. It's because I think he came with a lot more aggression than I expected him to. I thought he was going to put this together in a way that kind of brings up all the other guys, gives them a way to compete, gives them some prize money while we're at it, and kind of puts them first instead of himself, which he did all that. That is all true, and that is why I've been such a big proponent that you should go sign up for the Shaw Elite Club and watch this, because he and his wife Carrie and their whole team put on a wonderful, wonderful show for everybody, but he just came a lot more aggressive and focused even than World's Strongest Man, I thought. So here's the complete rundown of the results. Brian Shaw wins the overall. JF Caron comes in second place. Alexei Novikov comes in third. The latest edition, Trey Mitchell, ends up in fourth place. Really does very well in a variety of different events, except farmers, but we'll get to that in a second. Jerry Pritchett comes in fifth. Adam Bishop 6, Luke Stoltman 7, Maxime Boudreau 8, Kevin Ferris 9, and Terry Hollins, who had to bow out halfway through the competition, ends up coming in last. After the Farmers Frame Medley, he completed that event, but then didn't compete in anything else after that, so I don't know if he was just tired or there was an injury. I didn't really get any real details there, so let's start off by comparing the final results to my predictions so we can see how good or how dumb I was. So, let's start off with number one. I had Novikov winning with 54.5 points. It's a lot of points. I thought he was going to, do very well in a variety of areas. And, I thought he would win the Farmers and the Deadlift. So, how did he actually do? Well, I was giving him 6 points in the log press. What he actually got was 3.5, a tie with Caron in the log press. So he underperformed the log press of what I thought he would do. And then, in terms of the super yoke, I had Alexei winning the super yoke. Sorry, I had him coming in second to Bishop in the super yoke, and in fact, he won the super yoke. So not a big surprise there. He did more or less what I thought he would do. And let's just move this tab over. And then in terms of the Farmers, I had Alexei winning the Farmers. And what actually happened? Alexei ended up with only 4 points in the Farmers. So he ended up doing the first set of Farmers, which were 350 pounds per hand. The second set, which were 380 pounds per hand. And the difference was the first set were like Farmers with weight plates on each side of each farmer. And then the second set were like torpedo-shaped things, like encasements with not weight plates, with stands on the bottom so you can kind of stand them up. And so he did that, and he ended up going to the frame after that. And if we check our actual weights here, which I wrote down for us, our actual weight was an 880-pound frame, and he took that for distance, meaning he didn't make the whole length of the 10 more or less 10 meter or 30-foot track. So he ended up with only 4 points there. Then on the deadlift, I was a little surprised. Alexei actually looked really good on the deadlift for many weights. He actually made it up to, so the weights that I've listed here are the weights that guys were successful on, not the one they failed on. And so Alexi was successful on the Hummer tire deadlift up to 1,040 pounds, which is a ridiculous amount of weight. But it's not near the amount of weight that he recently did on the 18-inch deadlift at World's Strongest Man with the train axle setup. So that kind of feeds into the conspiracy theory that Alexi relied too heavily on his straps at World's Strongest Man, that his hands were barely on the bar, and also, sort of the other body of knowledge out there saying he's not among the world's strongest deadlifters from the ground. He's good on 18-inch, but that bottom piece, he, is very good, of course, all these guys are, but he's not in that elite caliber, and he's kind of closer to the 400 kilo mark than the 500 kilo mark when you talk about a standard deadlift. And the thing with this is, you would say, well, a Hummer tire deadlift is not standard. The bar is higher up off the ground because of the big tires, and that's true. But what happened was the guys were standing on a platform, and I'll concede that platform is probably only between 1 inch to 3 inches maybe, but that makes a difference when you're only talking about 12, 18 inches, right? So now, if you have a 3-inch platform and Hummer tires are already not as tall as train axle wheels are, I think they said it equated to more of a 12-inch lift than an 18-inch lift, and that may be why, he didn't do as well. He may not specialize as well in the lower bar weights, and I would imagine I don't either. Like, I think some guys are equal in both. Some are better in one, some are better in the other, but I think the vast majority of people would be better in a bar you don't have to pull as far. It just kind of makes sense. So he ends up with 5.5 points on the deadlift, and let's check. I'm sure I had him winning that event based on what he did at World's Strongest Man. And if we look, I had him winning that event. And again, like he got beat out by quite a few people. But the interesting thing is, some interesting things happened on a bunch of these events. First of all, I wrote dismount here on the farmers carry, and that's because Trey Mitchell on the second set of farmers, he didn't even make it to the frame carry. On the second set of farmers, he picked them up and kind of tripped over them and went flying like into a tumble, and Todd Harris mentioned what a great dismount he had. So that's kind of some notes that I took here. The other thing was Brian Shaw on his farmers needed a last minute hop to get it across, so they were thinking that may have cost him a point. If you see, his time of 34.82 seconds was not much slower than Maxime Boudreau at 33.86, and there were 2-point difference from each other. Kevin Ferris came in with 8 points at 34.63, so Brian could have been a point or two better had he not stopped and done a hop for that last few inches. So that's the farmers. The other thing I noticed was Luke Stoltman got away with a drag at the end of the yoke carry. So he was almost there and kind of dragged it across the last, I'll say 6 or 8 inches or something, and they gave it to him. So maybe that's allowed. I don't know. I just didn't see anyone else do that. And what would you do instead? Like, have him pick it up, bring it back, and go again? Like, you can't do that either. So I don't know what else you would do in that situation other than just count the time that it took him to drag it. But I just thought that was interesting. And then the other thing on the yoke is Maxime did not finish it. He was the only guy that was not able to actually finish the course. So getting back to deadlift, kind of the highlight of the whole competition, I think everybody on the internet will say the same thing, and that is because a world record was set for the Hummer tire deadlift and then broken a few minutes later. So what happened? Well, as I mentioned, Alexi was at 5.5 points, tied with Brian Shaw. Their best lift was 1,040 pounds. Brian actually seemed like he tweaked something, and I think he said in an interview later that he did tweak something like in his hamstring or something after, and that's why he didn't try to go any higher, but he seemed like he was at his maximum anyway. And then 7 points went to Trey Mitchell, who did 1,060 pounds, and like I said, he did well in everything except that farmer's frame medley. And to be the last guy to be invited because of all the injuries and whatnot and come in fourth is just incredible. And so Then you had Adam Bishop on the deadlift, who passed at 880 pounds. Like, I don't have to do that. I'll go up to the next one. And he ended up lifting up to 1,080, so 8 points to him. And then you had 9 points going to Jerry Pritchett. So Jerry Pritchett and JF Caron were the stars of the show. This record was previously held by Big Z Zydrunas Zaviskus, and I think it was 1,155 pounds if I remember correctly. And so they set the bar at 1,159.5 pounds when JF and Jerry were the only people left, and they both lifted it. And Jerry was psyched up, like he got that. He's like shouting at the people in attendance, and was really psyched up. Then they put 1,202 pounds on the bar, as you can see here, and as the commentators also alluded to, which I will repeat, it was the first weight that looked like it was hard for JF. Like, he was doing weights in the 1,000 and 1,100s, pardon me, that seemed like he had no problem with. It was his day for deadlift for sure. So Jerry and JF broke the record at 1,159.5, and then JF broke it again at 1,202 pounds. Jerry Pritchett, not to be, outdone or overshadowed, did his best on 1,202, was like an inch from locking it out. And I have to say, he's up there, if not surpassing, I don't want to exaggerate, but he's at least up there with Mikhail Shivlikov now as having the reputation of giving the greatest effort on a lift I've ever seen. Like, Shivlikov bleeds when he deadlifts and that might just be because he bleeds easily, but he has this reputation of giving 100% more often than anybody else, or at a greater magnitude than anybody else. And I think Jerry's up there now too. When Jerry tried to put up 1,202 pounds, he gave everything he had, to the point where he didn't do well in the events after that, because he gave so much of it's like he turned into a red sweating demon trying to get that thing off the ground. It was just a sight to behold. Everyone who saw this, and everyone who got the membership to watch this on the Shaw Ali Club, will tell you this was one of the greatest events they've ever seen. It was just amazing to behold not only what Jerry and JF did, but look at all these guys in the 4 digits. It's crazy what they were able to accomplish. So then we go to the Circus Dumbbell, and that was 244 pounds, I believe is what they said, 4 reps. And then Alexei ends up winning that event. So 10 points goes to Alexei Novikov and 9 to Brian Shaw. They were actually up head-to-head against each other in that particular event. Brian did 7 reps, Alexei did 8 reps. And then we had 8 points going to JF Caron with 4 reps. So Alexei and Brian destroyed everybody else. It wasn't even close. The gap between them and everyone else. And then you had 7 points for 3 reps going to Adam Bishop. And then you had 4.5 points split among Trey Mitchell, Luke Stoltman, and Kevin Ferris with 2 reps apiece. The one thing I noticed there that was interesting is I felt like Kevin Ferris might have deserved 2 more reps. I don't blame the judges. He got it up, and you have to demonstrate full control. And I guess it's a touchy subject on whether a split second without it moving is full control or not. I think technically it is. Like, he got it up overhead with a stiff arm, and it was controlled just for a very, very brief time, and that happened to him twice. So let's say he got 4 reps, he would have tied JF Caron for 8 points here, so they would have split, 7.5 each or something, and instead of getting 4.5, so Kevin Ferris would have ended up with 3 more points than he had, which would have it would have knocked him up 1 place, right? So he ended up in 9th, he would have been in 8th place. So, it matters, but they know what they're looking for more than I do. So, trust the judges on that one. I just thought some of them were very close, and I didn't notice that on the Circus Dumbbell. Then we go to Atlas Stones. And so, Atlas Stones was very, very interesting. So, we had Kevin Ferris went first, and he ended up with... They didn't really give us times for everybody on this event, so I wrote down the ones that they said. So I didn't get his time, but Kevin Ferris did, fairly well on the Atlas Stones, I thought, but he ended up with only 3 points at the end of it all, because then we had, some of the other guys going. Let's start off with 2 points went to Jerry Pritchett. And it makes me sad because, some other YouTube channels who talk about strongman really focus on being unbiased, and I try to do that as well, but I'm going to tell you who my favorites are, and I think you all know I was rooting for Jerry Pritchett to win this event. I thought he would come in second, if we go back to my predictions. I thought he would come in second, but I wanted him to win. And he gave so much of himself in that deadlift, and I think combined with the thin air, that he just didn't have anything left after that. The Circus Dumbbell, he ended up with no points, right? So here, he ended up with no points because he did no reps. And then on the Atlas Stone, 2 points for him. Not great. So it's sad because Jerry was actually, if I check my notes here, Jerry was actually, after the Hummer Tire deadlift, in first place overall. First place. So he was in first. I'll actually tell you after each event what it was. So let me just check my notes here. And so we had, after the first event, which was the log, Luke Stoltman, because he won the log, was in first. So basically, the placings in the log would be where everybody was, right? So Luke Stoltman was in first, Brian Shaw second, tied with Trey Mitchell, Maxime in fourth, Kevin Ferris tied with Jerry Pritchett in fifth, Alexi tied with JF Crone in seventh, Adam Bishop in ninth, and Terry Hollins in 10th. And then after event number 2, the Super Yoke, Brian had moved up to number 1 position, followed by Luke Stoltman 2, Trey Mitchell 3, Novikov 4, JF Caron 5, Jerry Pritchett tied with Caron at 5, Maxime 7, Kevin Ferris and Adam Bishop. Kevin Ferris 8 by half a point over Adam Bishop, who was 9, and Terry Hollins 10. Then we moved on in day 1 to the Farmers, and so after the Farmers and Frame Medley was complete, we had Brian Shaw still in first place by half a point now over Jerry Pritchett, who did fantastic in that medley. JF Caron third. They have it listed as tied for second, but that's not right based on the points. JF Caron third, Maxime fourth, Alexi fifth, Luke Stoltman 6, Kevin Ferris 7, Trey Mitchell 8, Adam Bishop still 9, and Terry Hollins still 10. So that was after 3 events. Then when we went to day 2 and started off the day 2 events, we had the beginning of day 2 with the Hummer Tire deadlift, and as I mentioned, after that, Jerry Pritchett had moved up to the number 1 position by a decent amount. He had 31.5 points, and Brian Shaw had 28.5. So 3 points is decent when some of these guys are separated by half a point. So then we had JF Caron 3, Novikov 4, Trey Mitchell 5, Luke Stoltman 6, Maxime 7, Adam Bishop 8, Kevin Ferris 9, and Terry Hollins 10. And then after the Circus Dumbbell, Brian Shaw is now number 1. He moved up to 1 because Jerry Pritchett did so poorly and didn't get any points there. So Shaw 37.5 points by a point over JF Caron, Alexi 3. And I believe that ended up being the final. Even after the Atlas Stones, Brian, JF, and Alexi ended up being the podium. So the podium after 5 events was what it eventually became after 6. So Jerry Pritchett was in 4th place at that time. Bishop had moved all the way up to 5. Trey Mitchell 6, Stoltman 7, Boudreau 8, Ferris 9, and Terry Hollins 10. And then, of course, the overall, after the Atlas Stones, you can see here, where Jerry Pritchett moves down to the number 5 position because he did poorly there as well. So it's really unfortunate for kind of the ending to what Jerry was actually leading at one point. So for fans like me, it's a little disappointing, but he did so well for 4 events that you got to give him a lot of credit and be happy with his performance there. So getting back to the Atlas Stones, we had the stars of the show there were Trey Mitchell and Brian Shaw. So if we take a look here where I have the dash 6, those are the only guys that finished all 6. So here, Trey Mitchell finished 6 in 36.54 seconds. JF Caron finished it in just under the 60-second time limit, 59.7. And then Brian Shaw had the choice of, if he beat Caron, he would win the overall. He didn't have to beat Trey Mitchell, but he had the choice of, do I want to also win the event and show I can win this event? And he did. Brian started off really fast, manhandled the lighter stones, and if we go up here, if you want to see what the weights were, they were 290 pounds, 330, 360, 400 pounds, 430, and 450, so 6 total stones. And Brian showed every bit of, he's the best Atlas stone lifter in the world who's not Tom Stolman. He really like blasted through them in a way that nobody else was close to except for Trey Mitchell. So that's how all the events laid out. That's the overall. How did I do with my predictions? I had Novikov, Pritchett, and Shaw in the podium, and the podium ends up being Novikov, Shaw, and Carone. So let's see. Did I get any of them in the right position? Well, I had Novikov 1. He is 3. I had Pritchett 2, he's 5. I had Shaw 3, he came in 1. I had Carone 4, he came in 2. I had Ferris 5, he came in 9. I had Maxime 6, he comes in 8. I had Bishop 7, Bishop comes in 6, so that's the one I'm closest so far. I had Trey Mitchell 8, and he destroys my my predilections there, or my expectations, coming in 4th place. Good job to him. Really, kudos, Trey. Like, fantastic performance. I had Terry Hollins coming in 9, and he ends up coming in 10th. And then I had Luke Stoltman coming in last, and he comes in 7. So, overall, how did I do? Not good. Not good at all. I mean, I was fairly close with Brian. I was very close with Adam Bishop. I was fairly close with Alexi, and that's about it. Well, I was 2 positions off with Carone too. So I was 2 positions off with Alexei Novikov, JF Carone, Brian Shaw, and 1 position off with Adam Bishop. So that's decent. Everyone else I did terribly with. It was an incredible event to watch. If you haven't seen it yet, you should go sign up for the Shaw Elite Club now and watch it. Well worth $8.99, even if you're not going to stay beyond this month for all the other goodies they have on the site, which I think are worth it as well. But even if you're not, it's a small price to pay for how exciting this was. You get to see world records broken. You get to see guys that you didn't expect do really well in certain areas, and guys that you expected to do better do less well in certain areas. They did things that World's Strongest Man doesn't do well, like not show you every competitor compete on every event. Here you got to see everybody do everything. The editing in... A lot of people were worried about the one-day delay, and also on top of that, there were some server issues, I will say, between 45-minute and an hour delay between the 2 days on kind of posting it when it was supposed to be posted, but I think that'll be... They may have gotten more people tuning in than they expected, which is a great thing, and I think that'll be worked out next year, where there's kind of more time to plan for all this stuff. So... definitely worth going to check out if you haven't yet. That's the final podium. I really look forward to next year's Shaw Classic. He's alluded to the fact that he wants to do it again next year. I'm very happy that he came out with the results today and made them public on all of Instagram so that we can get on here and discuss and see how my predictions worked out and show you all of the results and give you the in-depth analysis that you're used to getting from me on every strongman event. So I'm happy that you joined me again on my blog, Strongest Man, and I'll see you again next time when we discuss the next big event. Take care. So if you like this video and want to learn more about any of the products I described during this video, make sure to check out the links in the description below. So if you like this video and haven't done so yet, please consider subscribing using that button right there. And also stay tuned for some other videos that you might love blooping up right there. This one is the one that YouTube thinks that you will like the best, and this one is the one that I think you will like the best. As always, share this with everyone, and until next time, ciao, homie.